Hello, and welcome back, most illustrious members of the Detail. I'm your host, D, also known as MTF Doom, and I am alone on the couch today to introduce a new series I'm calling Local Legends, but I hope that the next episode, one of you will be sitting next to me. I hope you enjoy. So, the idea of this new series, Local Legends, is I would love to have some amount of you on to tell these stories about someone, either a game you were involved in, or just a really unique character from your local meta that stuck with you all these years later. Most of these stories are coming up on being a decade old now. Spoilers. These ones are about me. I'm starting off with some just very funny stories from my early days back into Magic that have stuck with me through the years. Ideally, going forward, I'll tell some about the Gas God. If you don't know the Gas God, he actually is like a fairly nationally known player. I believe he's a pro player, but Francis Luna himself, we got some stories about him. There's probably some stories about Doomtano and some of the other people that I've referenced on this channel at different points. But today, the stories are I have 3 stories about my time getting back into Magic. So to set the scene, I'm in my early 20s at this point. I'm in my early 30s now, which is why they take place a decade ago. I had been out of Magic probably for about 10 years. Going into high school, I got gate-kept pretty hard from the Magic community, mostly because it was adults, and they really just did not want to deal with, like, a kid. And I now teach Magic to kids, so I kind of get it, but also it kind of sucks because it put me off the game for a really long time, and it's something I ended up really, really loving. But, so anyway, I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Through my high school years and into my kind of early 20s, and then just kind of gave up on everything, and eventually stumbled into this little Magic shop called King's Landing, thinking like, oh, it would be fun to just go hang out. I think I had heard about Pauper and was like, why don't I just go to this shop and see if I can play Pauper? And I had asked bad ideas for what I wanted to play in Pauper. It was really funny, but I show up and I end up finding that I really like the community. And the most popular format from then till now was Commander, EDH, Elder Dragon Highlander. They all called it EDH. I didn't know that there was a difference between EDH, or there was no difference between EDH and Commander for a very long time. There's still a lot of work to do in how we train new people to learn the game, the sort of like ways in which we present information within our community, but this channel hopes to solve some of those things. So okay, I'm in my early 20s. I'm playing Commander with, again, ass bad decks, but I'm enjoying myself quite a lot, and I'm part of this local community. And 2 of these games revolve around me getting the moniker, or like the, you know, people started to think of me as a giant asshole, but mostly players I didn't actually play with very often, because I pulled shenanigans like this. And then the third one's a little different. So this first story, it's a 6-player pod. So it's me. To my left is one of the players involved in this story, and to my right is another player involved in the story. And sitting across from me is Doomtano from the last video, actually. And so Doomtano is a weird guy, and I say that with a lot of respect on his name, and he plays weird guy ass cards. So the card in question right now is called Mana Cache. It's a 3-mana enchantment. It says, at the beginning of each player's end step, put a charge counter on Mana Cache for each untapped land that player controls, and any player during their turn may remove a charge counter from Mana Cache to add a colorless, but you can only do it on your own turn before your end step. So you can functionally float mana to the next player. It incentivizes you using all your mana. It's a cool ass card. It's a Doomtano ass card, and He plays it, and the person to his left is now the person to my right, right? So this person, we'll call him Atarka, as I think that's what he was playing. And Atarka is another fairly new player and has fallen. I'm maybe a year into my journey relearning Magic, but Atarka has not learned that you aren't supposed to say shit like, oh, I think I win next turn. Because new players are really bad at this. New players love saying, I was, for the longest time, I used to do that shit too. Like, oh, I think I win next turn. Like, audibly out loud would say that shit. I don't know why we do it. It's just a thing new players do. And this player did it. And they're playing, you know, just like red-green dragon stuff, right? I'll put Atarka on screen right now. It just gives your shit like double strike, and you swing with dragons and they are big. It's a really simple strategy. It's a very new player strategy. No shade on it. But they say this. They say, I think I'm going to win next turn. And then the person to my left, we'll call him Control because he was playing a control deck, goes, oh, well then I'm going to kill you on my turn, just so you know, because you said that. And the player Tarka starts kind of like, oh no, I might not. And Control goes, no, it's too late. Like, if you say you're gonna win, I'm gonna have to take you out. And I go, well, Atarka, since Mana Cache is out, what you can do is you can float all your mana, and if you float it to me, I can make sure that Control doesn't kill you on their turn. And Control and I are like fairly good friends, and goes like, D, I don't think you can promise that, actually. Like, I'm looking at my hand. I don't think you could stop me from killing Atarka next turn. And I was like, nah, I'm pretty sure I could stop you. And with it, we kind of like bicker back and forth about it. And I'm like, listen, I believe that Control can kill you, Atarka, but if you float like 4 mana for me, I'll have enough to stop them. And Atarka's like, I don't know if I trust you, but you know what? All right, I'll do it. And so they actually end up floating, like, I think all their mana. Just pass it to me. And so I untap, and I draw. I go, okay, cool. Remove a bunch of charge counters off Mana Cache, and play Worst Fears, which says, I'll put it up. Take control of target player on their turn. Targeting control player. I'm gonna kill you using control player's cards. There. Now control player hasn't killed you, and Control starts cracking up. And Atarka was not happy about it, but he was eliminated, but not by Control, but by me instead. So I technically fulfilled my end of the Faustian bargain. The monkey's paw curled in that moment, and everyone was happy except Atarka. So, in retelling that, actually, maybe I was an asshole. And we're gonna get into the second story now. So the second story, even further along in my Magic career. And at this point, we have other people. You know, you get into a hobby and you're kind of like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and you don't really engage with any drama. Like, oh, that person's known for this. That person's not. And you're like, yeah, whatever. Like, okay, that I don't particularly care. And so this person was known as like not particularly fun to play with. So they played, I'll again put it on the screen, Edric, Spymaster of Trest. And it's a 2/2 for 3 mana, 1 green-blue. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to your opponent, its controller may draw cards. So it incentivizes players hitting each other and not you. And it looks like a deck that's perfectly fair in a lot of ways. But this player played Edric Turbo Turns. And if you don't know what that means, they would just play a bunch of extra turn spells, because if they attack their opponents, they get to draw cards. And if they can draw enough cards, if one player goes shields down and doesn't have anything to block, and this player can just keep hitting them for like 2 or 3 damage, and just drawing like 2 or 3 cards every extra turn, and then just do another extra turn, eventually they'll win. But it's not an infinite combo in the way that some players, like, sometimes it can be frustrating to lose to an infinite combo, wherein you just don't, like, have a way to win, and your opponent goes, okay, well, anyway, you can't interact with this, so I deal infinite damage to all players except me, and I win. But at least the game is over. A deck like this, you all have to sit there to make sure that they can win, and it's not guaranteed. And that's kind of the frustrating part, because this player would also just kind of, like, either ask, like, do you all just, like, want to concede and I can win? Or they would just, like, take a really long time playing each of these turns out, like, trying to optimize them to reduce the chance that they'd fail the combo. But in doing so, kind of wasting everyone's time. So everyone gets stuck in this really, really bad, feels bad, like, moment. And so what ends up happening is we're playing and they haven't gone off yet, and someone plays Hell Vault. Hell Vault will exile a creature you don't control for 7 mana. I believe we're also playing with DOOMtano in this pod, and DOOMtano was able to tap and untap artifacts, so was able to create a lot of mana. Maybe not infinite, but was kind of just going crazy with exiling players' creatures. But when Hell Vault is put into a graveyard, return all cards exiled with it to the battlefield under their owner's control. And so DOOMtano targets Edric, the actual commander Edric. And the Edric player goes, okay, I'll opt to put him in the command zone. And I go, oh, don't worry about it. I'm next up, because my Seedborn Muse is already under the Hell Vault. Now, obviously, I want my Seedborn Muse back. And this Edric player's like, well, I don't trust you. Like, how do I know you're going to destroy it? And I show that I have an Aura Shards in my hand. I flash them in Aura Shards. And they go, so you're going to blow up the Hell Vault? I go, yeah. On my next turn, right after you, you're not going to have your Edric for your turn. I'm sorry. But I'm going to blow up the... I have that card. I have that card. I'm going to get rid of the Hell Vault. And I'm not saying out loud what card it is. And that's also important for the story. So they opt to let Edric go under the Hell Vault. They see that I have the Aura Shards. They're going to let Edric go and get him back next turn. And it gets to my turn, and I untap, and I play Brutalizer Exarch, which is a 3/3 for 6 that says, when it enters the battlefield, put a non-creature permanent on the bottom of its owner's library. Very importantly, not destroying it. And so the Hell Vault goes to the bottom of the DOOMtato's library. At which point Edric is stuck in exile forever, because the Hell Vault will now never be destroyed. So I lost my Seedborn Muse, but it was worth it to not have to risk us going into a Turbo Turns 20-minute wait to see if we were going to lose. And I will take that deal any day. What's better about this moment is that in this moment, everyone else at the table started ragging on the Edric player really hard, because they think that that's the card that I flashed to this player, and that they just didn't understand what was about to happen. Well, fuck them. It's Turbo Turns, you know? Fuck them. All right, third and final one, and this one's more open-ended, right? This one's not so much local legend. It's actually I was on the road for this one. So I at one point was very, very militantly professional at Magic the Gathering, and I ended up getting invited to GP New Jersey. Yeah, New Jersey. It was a team sealed event right when the second Zendikar set came out, the Return of the Eldrazi set, whichever one that was. So I get invited by this team to be on their team sealed, and we show up and we do really, really well. And I think we don't drop a game for the first 4 rounds. If you don't know, by the way, team sealed is you and 2 other players get a set of packs of the new set, you have to build 3 decks, and then you and both of those players play 1v1 against other teams of 3, and so it's still best 2 out of 3 per game, per match, but also it's best 2 out of 3 per team. So even if I lose 2 out of 3 of my games within a match, if both my teammates win 2 out of 3, then we as a team won that match, like in total. So we build our decks, and this is my first big event. So, you know, while I was sweeping locals, you know, F&Ms, I had not had any experience with this was my first dip of the toe into actual professional level Magic, rules enforcement Magic. And so we win like 4 rounds in a row. We're going into something like round 5 or 6. And we get stopped before the round starts. And a judge comes over and goes to me specifically, me and my opponent. And we have already shuffled, drawn our opening hands, and the judge stops and says, okay, what's happened so far? And we explain, well, we decided who was going to go first. Like, I won the die roll. We shuffled, we drew our hands. And they say, okay, cool. We have to deck check you 2. And there's, like, it's just a random deck check. There's no reason for this. And so we're like, oh, okay. And so they go, okay, since you already opened drew your opening hands, we're going to make sure that those same 7 cards are the ones that will be returned to you. The rest of the deck might get shuffled around, but it doesn't matter. It would be functionally randomized anyway. So we'll, you know, and you'll get a time extension for all the time that it takes. So can we see your decks and your sideboards? And my opponent, you know, puts his hand on top of his deck, takes out his deck box, opens it up. There's the sideboard is in there, puts the deck in with the sideboard, closes the deck box, hands it to the tournament organizers. I don't have a deck box. I have a messenger bag that I've been living out of for this whole weekend. So I pull my messenger bag out, and I open one of the side pockets, and I just pull some loose cards out and sort of hand the whole thing to the judge. And they go, okay, that's your sideboard? And I say, yeah. And I like sort of show the pocket is now empty. There's nothing else in the pocket except my deck and my sideboard. And now they have all of it. And they go, okay, yeah, that's cool. And my opponent goes, you don't have a deck box? And I'm like, nah, I didn't really think about it. I didn't think I needed one. You know, like, this is like a sealed event. Like, I don't normally bring a deck box for Friday Night Magic, so I just didn't think about it. But he, like, gives me attitude about it. I'm like, all right, whatever, man. So we're both sitting there just kind of twiddling our thumbs. We don't want to say anything because we don't want to give any info away. And they come back, and they pull both of us away from the table. And each of us has to walk away with a judge. And the judge that pulls me away goes, okay, yeah, you're all set. Your sideboard was all registered correctly. Your main deck reflected all the cards in your deck. You're all set to keep going. You know, and your opening hand is on top of your library in the same order that you drew it. So you'll draw that at the start of the game. And I was like, oh, cool, because that was like a sick hand. And he goes, yeah, it was. And he fist bumps me. I was like, hell yeah. So we get back to the table, and the other judge has come over with my opponent and goes, so you're going to get a game loss, and points to my opponent. And, you know, so you're just going to start as if you were starting game 2. You have to shuffle, and you'll just start as if this person had lost game 1, and so they get to choose if they want to play or draw. And I was like, I can't keep my opening hand. And the other judge that pulled me aside is like, you definitely would have won game 1 anyway. And I was like, yeah, this doesn't even feel like getting a game loss on my opponent. Like, I had that game. So they walk away, and I was like, so what happened? And my opponent goes, oh, there were some cards in my deck box that weren't supposed to be there. So somehow some other cards had made their way into my opponent's deck box. So much for oh, you don't have a deck box, right? So that's it. All right, that's it. Those are the 3 stories I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that that these are entertaining for you. I guess if you probably don't play Magic, some of these are just going to be like nonsense, even with me putting the cards up on screen, which I hopefully will be able to do. But I would love to have you on. If you're not comfortable coming on, I understand, but even if not, I'd love to hear your stories down in the comments below. I'd love for you to just hop on Discord and share them. Like, I really love this stuff so much. And like, you know, people's history is so cool to me, right? The people's history of an event. And this is kind of like being able to form my own set of like people's history of Magic the Gathering. And that's really cool to me. And I hope it's cool to you. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a great day. And I will see you all tomorrow. A special thank you to all my patrons in the traditional sense, not like the Patreon sense, who keep this channel running and make all this possible. They are as follows: The Tiny Ruby, A Frog in a Tent, Clips, Crayon Eater, Cole D, Polyhaze, Satorius, Demisi, and KD. These videos would not be possible without you. I appreciate you all so much. If you would like your name added to this list, I think at this point you know how to do it. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you all tomorrow.